Hello, and welcome to the You Are the Program podcast. It is October 12th. Week 6 of the college football season is in the books, and your Spartans are back at 500, getting curb stomped, bullied, whooped, whatever it may be, just happened yesterday on Saturday afternoon. This is the You Are the Program podcast presented by Nudge Printing, and I'll bring in my podcast co-hosts here, Tyler Higbee, Brian Lewerke, this is Dante Rosano. I would say how are we feeling, fellas, but I think we know how we're feeling.
Yeah, and I was saying before the pod, unfortunately, this is a common feeling and a feeling that we've felt for a while. Actually, pretty much the entire eternity, at least for me on this podcast. You have some games of elation.
You didn't miss much the first year. Yeah, you didn't miss much the first year.
You have some games of elation, a.k.a. the Boston College game this year, where you think Boston College is a good team and turns out they're not. And then most of the time it's, something like this where actually, I think this is a lot worse than probably one of the worst losses we've had in a while. Just a UCLA team that had a little bit of fake confidence. I guess maybe not even fake confidence, but some confidence coming off of a Penn State win. And they just absolutely continue that. And our team really didn't show any fight after that first drive where we went down and scored a touchdown. And it looked like this was a game that we were going to be at least competitive in. And it quickly got out of hand. And I kind of felt like the team gave up a little bit on not only their team, but also Coach Smith a little bit.
To quote Coach D again, I think, Brian, you said it last week, it can always get worse. And I don't really know if it can get worse after this. The way this feels, the way that game went, the way this team looked, the amount of fight that they showed or lack thereof. I mean, it was – you look on Twitter, and I know there's a lot of good things and bad things about Twitter, but I think the vast majority of former players, people that have been through the thick and thin with this program for years, we're all kind of on the same page. And it's really just unacceptable at this point. Like, I feel like I've been the eternal optimist, glass half full throughout these years. And I've given Smith the benefit of the doubt, but that product that was on the field on yesterday, it's just not good enough. And it looks like at times, I'm not going to say these guys totally quit, but there's just not that fight that you want to see. Even when the game's not going your way, it's just a pride thing. And at some point it's got to matter. It's got to matter to you.
Yeah. Whether it can always get worse, any type of message that you want to say. I mean, I was there in person, and the crowd in general, it was a full house. There was a lot of support on homecoming, a lot of people there, great day. And you go out and put that product on the field. To your guys' point, I think we try to toe a line, and this is where I want to start here, is we toe a line as former players of not the glory years of Coach D. I mean, you guys were part of a Big Ten championship and college football playoff team in 2015. I come in 2016, and from there it was, we had one good year there in 2017, and the rest was, just a middling product, honestly, for the most part, when you go 6-6 and the 3-9s, whatever it might be. But, we try to toe a line here of, we're always going to be positive because this is the program and the place that we love. And we spent a lot of our life, or a big part of at least our growing life at Michigan State. And it's hard to just outwardly being negative. I mean, we even talked about it last week in terms of, hey, the fans on Twitter, commenting below recruits' tweets about fire Smith and all of this stuff. And that doesn't help. And I'll always say that doesn't help. But, it gets to a point where that goes from like, all right, we lost to Nebraska, we lost to USC, and then you have an unacceptable performance at home against UCLA on homecoming where you have former players back, you have important people in the building. And you, I'm not going to say quit, but it's the lack of, I think, Tyler, you put it best, is the lack of fight of once something goes bad, because once it went bad, it quickly got worse. And that's where I'll go back to the Coach D'Antonio saying of it can always get worse. yeah, it might not be worse from like you have UCLA at home. They're 1-4, and that's your opponent. It might not get worse from that standpoint, but from the standpoint of this team, you have 2 more months of the season. You have how many more games? 6 more games.
Yep.
It can get worse week in, week out, every Sunday, Monday that is awful to get through, Tuesday, Wednesday practices that are physical. You have a lot more of those to go. And it's not going to get better unless the people in that room decide that it's going to get better. And that's where I kind of want to go, is whether it's Jonathan Smith or whether it's the team. I don't want to say there's no leadership on this team. Again, I want to toe that line carefully, but it is not evident on the field by the lack of fight.
Yeah, that's kind of a key indicator of a team that has good leadership, is whether or not the fight is there. And I tweeted something out too, is it just doesn't seem like, it's kind of like one thing goes bad and everyone's like, oh, here we go again. And that's kind of how it felt last year too, with stuff happening, and one thing bad would happen, it would snowball into another thing and another thing. And that just kind of seems like the effect that this team, that is happening for this team. And I don't know. It seems like I mean, I've always been a very optimistic person about the team, and I also tweeted this out. I don't think that we should be firing Smith, but I would be supportive of whatever J Bat does after the season, whether that's to keep Smith and give him one more year, because obviously, I mean, I think J Bat is a great AD, and he knows what's best and what he thinks would be the best plan. Or if he wants to can him and go find someone else, go find a guy that he likes. I'm kind of down for any option here right now. So.
Yeah, I don't know. This offseason is going to be interesting. I don't know if you guys listen to Josh Pate. He comes on a radio show down here in Houston once a week, but he's got his own podcast, his own show. He's a good listen if you don't listen to him already. But he made a comment last week about how there's going to be a coaching carousel here pretty soon, and it's going to be one like we've never seen before. And he hit the nail on the head with the big game James situation, and I mean where Michigan State's at. I'm not sure he was referring to Michigan State when he made that comment, but it's going to be interesting because this program, I mean, it's in a tough spot right now. We thought we were on a good track, but these last 3 weeks, I think you wrote it down here in the notes, Dante, just the regression from the offense specifically since the bye week has been tremendous, and it's like I don't really know. I just don't know. It's really hard to see.
Yeah, as much as there will be plenty of time to talk about what does or doesn't happen down the road, I'll say the last thing at this. I am never for, and I'll always speak up for, trying to find stability. And I don't think getting rid of a coach in 2 years is the way to find stability, because not only you're turning it over, but in the same breath, what kind of message are you providing to the rest of maybe your prospective coaches if it doesn't work? But I do think it is a different era, and that's where I think there is some adjustment in the minds of fans and in the minds of us as people watching exteriorly. Is things can change, and Indiana, like we saw Indiana go on the road and beat Oregon this weekend, and I know the one thing that's always been out there with Indiana's quick turnaround and what Coach Cignetti has done is, well, why couldn't that have been us? Like, why shouldn't we shoot for that goal? I still think it's a very rare occasion to see that level of success, that level of coordination, execution that Indiana puts out there. But, I don't really want to talk about the J Bat stuff as much, and the Jonathan Smith and the coaching situation of, do we get rid of him or not? Because we don't know. And J Bat's going to be put in a very, very tough position right out the gate. First year AD, he's got to make him or the donors or whoever it may be has to make a huge decision that it rolls downhill. And one of my thoughts on it, and this is all right. I'll actually leave it here. Is that like if J-Bat makes a decision and brings in a coach, all of a sudden his clock now starts for he's under the microscope now because he's executing, some type of move that maybe he just doesn't want to do, and maybe he wants to try and give Smith time. But either way, the product on the field on Saturday, I think, was awful in a lot of words. Before we go to that regression standpoint, I do want to kind of go around here. And we talked about leadership. That was one of the words that we had used, and lack thereof, it seems like right now. And you guys will have the extra year on me. You guys played 5 years. I played 4. You were part of the college football playoff Big Ten championship team in 2025, right? When I got there in 2016, we go 3-9. And then 17, we go 10-3, and then 6-6 the couple years after that. So we've seen like different levels of whether it's success or failure, and the leadership that comes out of kind of each of those levels, and how things not only started, but how things are handled on a day-to-day basis within the locker room. So I just kind of wanted to have a discussion around that, of like whether it was a 2015 or a 2017, and the type of leaders and the team that was composed of those leaders, how they navigated those those tough situations. And like when you saw the successes of a Big Ten championship or a college football playoff, or even in 2017, I know we only go to the not Red Box Bowl, Holiday Bowl, but it was a massive turnaround, and that felt like such a win for us. What is those leadership qualities, or what is the locker room like in one of those high years versus one of those low years? I just want to have this discussion around this because we're going through something right now where it seems like there is some type of player-led, whether it's player, coach, it doesn't matter. And we'll probably all say it should be player-led, but what is that leadership quality of a very good team, a not very good team, and how do we relate it to the product that we're seeing on the field right now?
I think my best answer is, not only do you have to be, like a good leader, talking wise and leading by example, but you also have to be productive on the field. And if you're a leader and if you're a good player for the team, you have to be able to show up in moments where whether it's a big game or it's kind of like a trap game, maybe like this one was, where you got to kind of dig deep and things aren't going right all the time, but you have to be the guy that makes, and your other leader have to be the guy that makes the play in the situation when your team needs it. And I think that's kind of the big thing that we're missing, is we don't have a guy that's like, all right, let me take this game over. Let me make sure that the defense gets a stop here, and we're not having communication errors on the back end, or we're not having communication errors up front in pass pro or something like that. Like we're doing the right thing, and we're making the plays when we're supposed to make them, and kind of being that guy that says like, hey, this is we got to be able to get this done. And so I think that's kind of the main thing, is we just don't have a guy that is showing up and kind of like saying, I'm not letting this happen today. I'm not letting us lose to UCLA, a 1-4 team that just had their head coach fired on homecoming. I'm not letting that happen, and I feel like we don't have that really.
Counterpoint. Shouldn't we though? Because there is a captain, or on both sides of offense and defense, that have a captain's patch on. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Higby.
Yeah, I was just going to say, one thing Coach D always told us at the beginning of the season, the seniors have to play their best. Seniors have to have their best year that senior year. And whether it was the seniors, whether it was the Eagles, the 12 captains, yes, they're quote-unquote your best players, your most productive players, but they have to back it up and actually play like it. And typically, I mean, the way it worked out for us, I feel like there was 1 or 2 Eagles or captains in each position group. So those guys kind of took that room over, led by example. Like, hey, I'm trying to play like Brian Allen. Like, he's a dog. He's kind of an asshole, but that's what you want, especially at your center. And so, like, we all tried to emulate him. When you get guys like that, you get guys like Joe Bocci in the linebacker room, Kenny, and like even like you, Brian. You get guys that back it up on the field. Like that's what you want. You want them kind of sprinkled around the team. You don't need just the 1 or 2 leaders offense, defense. But I feel like we had it where each position group kind of had that guy.
Yeah, exactly. Each position group, like you got to have like one or two guys that is kind of the leader of that group, and you can rely on to make a play at any time.
I think all of it's fair. I also want to try and ask you guys, because coaches run their program, or every program's different, and there's successful programs that I think, I don't want to say don't have that, but like I feel like there's times where there's different leadership styles, different coaching styles, and Jonathan Smith's different, and he had success at an Oregon State, program that's a very hard place to win. And I don't think, and I don't know enough about Oregon State football and what that program was like, but I don't think he's changed what he's done from Oregon State to Michigan State. So I want to caveat this whole discussion with us having this discussion does not mean that he can't work as a coach and he's a bad coach. I still think he is a good football coach. It is, for some reason, it is not working right now, as evident of yesterday. And so do you think, like, because what we're talking about, and Coach D'Antonio and Coach Manny would really ingrain it in us as a program and players, was confront and demand type culture. They'd always talk about putting your feet to the fire, Coach Manny specifically, in winter conditioning, spring training, making things really hard. And then they would encourage being a player-led team and locker room by holding each other accountable in the locker room. My point being is, I don't know that necessarily, like, if we look at the field and think that this looks unfamiliar by a leadership standpoint, I don't think that means that this can't work, or that he's a bad coach, or that, on down the line, all these different things. I think it can work in different ways. But with us, it's a little unfamiliar. So we talk about the leadership, and you guys have just mentioned all of those different examples. That's on game day. But let's talk about some leadership on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and even in the offseason. Like, what were leaders like in the offseason? Because I can remember, Tyler, you talked about Brian Allen. I think of Chris Fry or Joe Bacci in terms of the linebacker room. And in the offseason, or in practice, or in spring ball, like, they were not afraid to call someone out or to get in their face, like not in a physical way, but as Coach Manny would always say, it's confront and demand. So it's not just like a Saturday, hey, we need whoever our leader or captain is to step up and make a play and rally the guys. No, it's a every single day mentality. And that's where, when you hear in the offseason, oh, our culture is great, oh, this is the closest team that we've ever had. Okay, that's all great. But what is it like from a leadership perspective on a day-to-day basis? Who's enforcing that as a leader, whether it's a coach or a player, and how do you get going from that?
Yeah, I mean, to be that guy that isn't afraid to speak out and say something, through the week, if someone's not doing something correctly or they're not showing up on time, you have to be able to have like a little bit of a background, or a third or fourth year guy who's, been in the program for a little bit. The other players trust him. They know he's doing the right thing. So he kind of has that foundation to be able to speak up and say something, and, kind of be that leader. So maybe that's kind of what we're missing. Obviously, we're not behind the scenes, but that's kind of, I think, is also a big thing, is just a guy that has the belief and confidence of his teammates, that when he says something, it's what they should be doing. And whether they're calling him out for being late to a lift, or if they don't think that they're showing enough effort during practice, or if they're not studying hard enough to, messing up stuff during practice, MAing, that sort of thing. I think that's kind of what the day-to-day example looks like.
Yeah, part of it for me, I feel like it's kind of, you get the sense it's almost like a fake tough, or like a fake. There's almost something fake about it, whether it's like the fake, like someone, they say the right things to the cameras. Whenever the cameras are on, they say the right things. They do all that. But behind closed doors, maybe they're not the guy that's always, I don't know, doing the right thing, or staying the extra 10 minutes to watch film, getting the extra lift in, showing up to treatment on time, whatever, if you're nicked up, that kind of stuff. I mean, it all is under the same umbrella. So I think, to me, there's a little bit. There seems like there might be a little bit of that. And when you have, I mean, like I just said, our leaders, our Eagles, they're the guys that like you said, Dante, day in and day out, they're doing the right thing all the time. They're the guy that you want to try to be like all the time.
Yeah, I just don't think, on a day-to-day basis without, I hate even bringing that into question because there's so much 90% of 95% of what we see and we know because we've been there. But what we see on the field right now that's 5% of it. And so there's so much work that goes in behind the scenes to where you have to trust to what they're saying. But when it doesn't match up, when it doesn't pass the sniff test here on Saturday of, you start going down, things start going downhill, and all of a sudden it's a quiet sideline. It's a sideline with no energy. I don't know what to come to the defense of. So
I will say it's hard. We're kind of comparing apples to oranges right now because of the way college football is now. I mean, we were all there for 4+ years in the same system with the same coaches, and we kind of understood, like, once you get there, like, this is what it is. But nowadays you have these guys that come in, they have transfers. I mean, and some guys on their second, third school. It's different everywhere you go. I mean, I'm not making excuses, but it's not exactly the same as the way we had it.
Good point.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and that's where I was actually going to go next. Is like, that's what's hard about us saying it as former players because we've been through it, but at the same time we haven't been through this because this is completely different, and the ties to the university and the place where you are almost, I don't even want to say almost, seems transactional at this point. It is transactional because these big recruits or transfers or anyone who it might be is getting paid to come to your school to play football. And so, the days of, 2016 to 2017, where we go 3-9 and you have pretty much the same locker room or the same core group of guys that went through all of 2016, that went through all of 2017 winter conditioning, spring ball, summer conditioning, all of that stuff leading up to 17, that now it's transactional in the way of, all right, we had a bad year. I'm out. I'm going somewhere else. I can get paid somewhere else. Maybe I can get a raise somewhere else. And so, this isn't just old man yelling at cloud, but it almost kind of feels that way, even though we are 6 years removed from playing football there. So, the game has just changed so much. So that's why it's even harder, I feel like, for us to parse through and say, well, in our day, back in our day in the 2019s, 2018s, this is how it was. But it's a tough discussion. It's not a perfect formula, but
maybe that's like a part that we didn't look at or like analyze as much when NIL came around. You had guys transferring in and out. You don't really have like that guy that knows the program like well. Like you don't have like a good player that's been there for 3 or 4 years, unless you're at like a bigger school already that is getting guys. But
here's the thing. I mean, one thing we talked about with this team coming into this year, while all of what we just said is true, one of our biggest points of emphasis on why we thought this team would develop and be better is the fact that we were able to retain our roster. We were able to retain the guys that we wanted. We wanted Aiden Childs to come back. We wanted Nick Marsh to come back. And they are great players. I don't want these results to diminish what we think of. I think some of the talent is, but I just think that's where the frustration lies now, is that we're in this standpoint where we're in an era that people are turning over their rosters all the time. This team did not do that. And it's just that I think that even builds on the frustration a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Were we good on that? I think that was a needed discussion, but it'll probably be a common theme unless proven otherwise. And I hope we get proven wrong, but you kind of are what you put on the field, and you are what you put on tape. Was that what Coach D or some of the coaches would? You can't hide from tape.
The eye in the sky don't lie.
Eye in the sky do not lie. And so if you're watching tape and you're watching on TV or you're watching in person, wherever it might be, I can't pass judgment on anyone for how they feel right now. So we had talked about something. Tyler, you just brought it up. I put it in the show notes. One of the things that has been on the field very disturbing has been the offensive regression in the past 2 weeks. We talked about how this offense was kind of humming along, even in the USC game, to where they were efficient, they were getting things easy. You know, their running game was good. There was a lot that was going on in the good direction or positive direction. Yeah, it wasn't perfect, but this offense was forming into something that we felt recognizable, or that was at least what we thought might be going into the year. Against Nebraska, offense puts up 27 points. It wasn't pretty. The pass game wasn't working. And it was really much of the same here against UCLA. I mean, we go down, Brian, as you talked about, first drive, make it look really easy. Again, another scripted drive, touchdown, and then you for the rest of the half, I mean, you're putting these third down, third and medium, pressure situations to where the game pressure is starting to get felt of like, well, if we don't pick up this one, then I don't know. I don't know where to even start this discussion, because in the last 2 weeks, it just doesn't feel like, I don't know how much schematically it's felt like they changed, but in terms of just watching it, it doesn't seem as easy. It doesn't seem like they're doing as many of the little things correctly. And this goes into our overall discussion, but let's talk a little offensive regression here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of the same point that I touched on last week or 2 weeks ago, maybe, where they're just trying to reach too much, and Aiden Childs is trying to do a little too much because like the easy stuff isn't working anymore. I mean, obviously, Mekhi Frazier rushed for 60 yards on 12 carries. It's not terrible. It's almost 5 yards a carry. So, it is 5 yards a carry. So it's not like awful numbers as far as rushing the ball, but it just doesn't seem like we're able to, I don't know, make the play that we need to in the correct moment. And whether that's, the offensive line is not holding up, or the receivers aren't catching the ball, and, those 50-50 contested balls. I'm not really sure, but it's probably a collection of kind of all that.
There's a lot of thoughts that went through my head yesterday when we were watching, and I'm watching with some family, and I was projecting like 3 plays ahead. I'm like, oh, this is going to happen, then this, then we're going to go for it on 4th down and not get it. And I was kind of going play by play, like what we were going to do, and that's exactly what we did. And there's just no way it should be that predictable. If I'm sitting on my couch watching the game, and I know what's coming. Like, I can only imagine what these defensive coordinators who sit and watch hours of film all week, what they think's coming. It's the predictability, and I heard on the broadcast as well, like it felt like this team has given up a lot of TFLs, and then they gave the stat that Michigan State's given up the 4th most TFLs in the country this year. Ooh. And that kind of makes sense, because that's kind of what it feels like. It's just really tough to operate as an offense when you're behind off schedule that many times.
Yeah,
I'd like to see the stat, just because I don't know how much of that skewed from the Nebraska game, but I mean, a stat's a stat, but again, I think that kind of goes back to, well, how much of it's a regression point versus how much of it that's just who we are. Where do you think, I guess, if we were to go a little blame pie here, if we're to give assign some percentages to execution, or do we think the man calling the plays is lacking here? Because I think, Tyler, to your point, I have an issue when we talked about it a lot in the Nebraska post game of the game plan in terms of what we're doing, not utilizing Aiden Childs' legs, not giving easy stuff to receivers, throwing 6 passes of 23 of Aiden Childs in the Nebraska game, 20 yards or more. Like, where does that fall? Because at some point it also does become decision-making too from the guy throwing the ball. But, how many times have we done the run game, wide zone, play action, dump? Like, there's just things to where I feel like, both things can be true. I don't think we're executing at a high level, but at the same time, when you feel like you're watching on the TV, what we're going to run on 2nd or 3rd down, and it's not working, like where does that fall for you?
Yeah, I think it's I don't know. It's obviously a somewhat of an impact. Obviously, that play that we talked about, the 4th and 1 where we check to the crack toss sweep. I don't even like giving Aiden Childs the option on that play. Like just run either like have the check be like quarterback sneak to like inside zone or something, or like inside zone one way to inside zone the other way. Like don't call that play in that situation where Aiden Childs has the option to even check out of it and go to the outside, because there's a possibility that could happen. Like I'd rather get stuffed 9 out of 10 times on a quarterback sneak rather than get a crack toss sweep on 4th and 1 9 out of 10 times. It's just like it doesn't. It's like, whew, okay, that worked. Let's just get to the next play versus like quarterback sneak. I don't know, just put it up the middle. But I think there's a little bit to the play calling, but I think it's also a little bit Aiden Childs. There's a couple plays, 1 third down in particular, that he threw like a rail route to I think it was Mekhi Frazier.
Yeah.
And it was like a contested-ish ball that a running back is probably not going to be able to make. And if he would have just come off that read, he had Nick Marsh running a little shallow cross that he probably would have caught, easily would have gotten a first down and maybe, broke a couple tackles and got a big gain. So I think there's always a little bit of both, but I'm not too upset at Lindgren right now, besides maybe the predictability of you kind of know when he's going to like run the ball or pass the ball, and the checks that we have under center is always check to a run play, stuff like that. But I'm still liking what he's able to do, I think.
Counterpoint, I think Amari Kelly has 2 catches in the last 2 weeks. Go ahead, Tyler.
You're probably right.
Yeah, my thing is I would like to see this offense just become, pass first. I feel like we talked early on in the season how this O-line was able to get a push on that right side. We haven't seen that same push in these past few weeks. Like, to me, you get and I go back to that 4th down too, Brian. Like, you like that play call, like even giving him the option to make that check at the line. So much has to go right when you run a toss crack like that, especially on 4th and 1.
Yeah,
just run a sneak or just turn around and hand the ball to Mekhi Frazier. Like schematically, you're expecting. I think it was Amari Kelly. You're expecting him to crack a linebacker or a D end. Like schematically, that's just not what you want, especially on 4th and 1.
Yeah.
So just turn around, hand the ball off. I'm kind of with you though. Pass game wise, I feel like we just haven't done Lindgren many favors with Childs coming off the first read, and I feel like sometimes the receivers are just getting locked up. For as much as we talk about these receivers making big plays, I feel like there are times where they're just not getting the separation that we kind of expect them to get.
And how much of that even feels like, because it feels like we're putting a lot into the receiver's hands of being able to get open and get free rather than scheming things open and doing things that might be easy against a certain look or coverage. So
yeah,
I think there's plenty of blame to go around, but Tyler, you talked about it as well. We also started Ashton Lepo again at right tackle. So, you've changed the dynamic of your offensive line. And while I don't want to say Stanton Ramil was that big of a piece of your offensive line you can't replace him, I just don't really understand the point of going through these progressions of, hey, he played really bad against Nebraska, right? There's no adjustment made off of that. And that's where I'm not there Monday through Friday. We only see it on Saturday, but it's just tough to talk about. Well, the right side of the offensive line was getting pushed. You flop things around. Guys still need to execute. They should be able to create gaps, create lanes, do what we do well, but it hasn't happened. So what can we do about that? What adjustments can we make from that? And it just hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Defensively, let's talk a little bit defensively. I know a lot of people will be up. Go ahead.
Do you want to give our guys nudge?
Yes.
A little shout out.
Yeah, I needed I wanted to talk defense so bad, but when I can talk about defense and be sad, I can be happy and talk to you guys about nudge printing. I wore my Kelly Green Gruff Sparty hat this weekend. Got at least a handful of compliments by anyone that noticed it. We will all be rocking it in 2 weeks when we go up for the Michigan game. We are still going to have fun. We are still going to tailgate. We're going to do everything. And it is important to remember that nudge printing Obviously, as a presenting sponsor, they are, one of our favorite brands to go to. Comfortable, style, everything looks good. Actual alumni, as we've always talked about, they're Michigan State, Spartan-owned business. Everything is printed here in mid-Michigan. So when you wear their gear, you are supporting local craftsmanship and a true Spartan spirit. That is Nudge Printing. I also wore the basically the logo that we tried to do with our You Are the Program script here, the Michigan State one across the front. It's great. I mean, it's great. It's not like that's the other thing. Tyler, we talk about this all the time, and Brian, in terms of golf or any good type of like gear. Everything seems to be so expensive that you're spending $500. Not the case with Nudge. They are very well priced, as we talked about quality, and it's very stylish. Mm-hmm. If you're a Michigan State fan and not shopping at Nudge, honestly don't know where you're going for it.
And right. I think that they typically have a lot of stuff on sale too, at least when I've been on the website.
Yeah, always some type of promotion going on. Truly very, very good gear. All right, let's talk defense a little bit before we kind of go open this thing up to the Big Ten, because there is a lot going on right now in the Big Ten. Defensively, I don't think this has to be a huge conversation here. We know they struggled this week, but I just throw this one back and say, they didn't play good. They didn't stand up. They didn't have your offenses back. But at the same time, the offense put them in plus territory 2 times in the first half. Stopped on turnover on down, sack, fumble. They're putting a lot of bad spots. And this is where I kind of go back to like 2016. I don't feel like we had as much of this, but like I remember specifically in 2018-19 when we had those good defenses, we've talked about it. And the offense was struggling its way through games. Brian, I know you were in and out in 18. Like in those times where we as a defense had very good games and we'd still walk away from it. There is a point of like it starts to crack the foundation of a defense, and totally different situations. The defense back then was top 5 level good, and so it felt like we were always being put in these positions or not getting the support we needed. But right now they're just not doing it. So defensively, is there anything that kind of stood out? We had 1 sack in the first half. That was pretty good.
Yeah, not terrible. Jalen Berger must have been listening to the pod on Thursday because yeah, he just had to go for 3 burgers.
Higbee poked the bear.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. I mean, Nico didn't look incredible. He missed.
He missed. Yeah,
he missed a lot of throws that actually like would have been big gainers that could have made the score even a little worse. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. They didn't play great offensively, but they also were put. They had the ball in very advantageous situations a lot of times. So our defense was kind of put to a disadvantage a decent amount of time. So I don't know. It's tough, like you said, Dante, when the foundations kind of starts to crack and you don't really see, like, even if you get a stop here, the offense isn't like going to go down and score. So it kind of wears on you a little bit. So I think that's kind of the biggest situation with the defense right
now. That is also where I'd go back to a little leadership chat because, Brian, I don't know how much you would come down or like, because the sidelines are segmented for those that don't know. There's an offensive side and a defensive side. You have typically some of your benches goes by position. There's offense, defense. Typically, like if you're not traveling, there's so many people on the sideline. And I say traveling, there's 115 guys on the team. There's 75 that travel or in the playing depth. And so typically they want people to stay to their side because there's so much going on the sideline that you don't get a lot of offensive guys coming down to the defensive side during the game and vice versa. Like how much or how often would you come down to the defensive side? Let's say if you had a turnover or if they picked you up or something, like how often would you come down there and say, hey, like, my bad, I got you on this, we'll move the next series or score the next series or something like that. Or vice versa for the defense going down. Like I didn't see any segmentation of like, that's where I'll go back to the leadership and say, as a captain or as someone in a position of leadership on that sideline, I would have kind of liked to see whether it's an Aiden Childs, Nick Marsh, Jordan Hall on the defense, someone go back and forth and say, we're struggling, but we'll pick you up here. We'll do something in the game. That's another little inherent things that I think would go a long way. Obviously, without being on the team and knowing the dynamic right now.
Yeah, I don't think to be honest with you, I could have done a better job doing that when I played. I didn't really do that a ton.
Accountability. Look at this. We'll always call ourselves up. Hand up.
Hand up. I could have been a lot better at that when I was playing. I could have been better at a lot of things when I was playing, but I think that's a great point that you make. Is they got to be able to have the confidence to communicate, inter squad, and be able to, offense and defense can kind of pick each other up, and that's just playing complementary football, and that's kind of not what we've been doing lately. So,
yeah, I can kind of remember a few instances where maybe the offense was struggling, and as an offensive line, we're on the sideline kind of talking through some things, and the defense forces another 3 and out. And I remember some of the members of the D line, like the way they came off the field, they have to run off right in front of where the O line is on the offensive side of the field. And I mean, they're just saying like, let's go, oh, like pick it up. Like they know we're struggling, but let's go. It's time to figure it out. And to your point, Dante, I don't know how much of that's going on with this current Michigan State team, because even hearing that, I can think of guys like Mike Panishute, him saying stuff.
That's exactly what I thought of too.
Raekwon.
Yeah, like I'm like, damn, like they're doing their thing on defense. We got to pick it up. We got to figure something out. We got to get some points on the board because, like you said, Dante, we had a top 5, top 10 defense for a few years there, and I think I mentioned this same point on our last episode. Like offense is struggling, you got to pick it up because the defense is out there balling.
Yeah.
It's one of those things to where energy is contagious and it's infectious. And that's where I hear people when everyone talks about, well, Jonathan Smith's very reserved on the sidelines. This goes back to my point like earlier. I don't think that that's necessarily like a red flag in terms of a bad coach or a good coach. There's a lot of coaches I think that kind of keep to themselves, let the other coaches kind of control and patrol. Even most of the time, Coach D wouldn't interfere with the ton. Now he'd get in some group huddles or defensive huddles when he needed to make a point, but for the most part, like that doesn't bother me. But it's the energy being infectious and contagious. If one good play happens or you're in a spot where you're down and you go make a good play at some point, that's where you got to go, or someone's got to go pick up the offense or the other side of the ball, vice versa. So I just wanted to bring that up there. I want to be very nuanced with how we're portraying some of these things, because we don't know for sure that these things do not happen. Like the halftime locker room could have been very animated, right? But that's just as an outside observer making a statement there. So let's wrap this one up, or at least the Michigan State talk here. Obviously a very, very brutal game, but I think this is going to be one of our catchphrases now. Tip the cap to Coach D. It can always get worse. So if you're listening to this at this point, don't think that just because we got whooped up and down the field on homecoming at home against UCLA, that is going to wake the team up. It can only get worse. Coach D would also say on a Sunday afternoon, if you do lose those games, the only people that can change this are you guys, the people that are actually, playing and practicing and doing everything on a day-to-day basis. So the point being behind that is someone's got to wake up and realize how do we change this? Because I don't think it's just as bad as like we can't. That's what makes it even more infuriating, because you have that UCLA performance. You were in a spot to beat Nebraska. Like you could easily be 5-1 right now. Easily.
Yeah, and we could also very easily be 3-9 in 6 weeks. So that's
exactly
the definition of it can always get worse.
And I'll tell you this: Signetti and that Indiana team is not gonna feel sorry for you next Saturday. So you really got to figure something out.
Wasn't trying to mention that until Wednesday. They are. That is not a team. If you want to talk about
that opens it up to this game against Oregon they just played.
Yeah, real quick. If you want to talk about like the absolute polar opposite of knowing what their business is and handling their business and not blaming. I don't want to say blaming, and not caring about anything else besides the fact that we're a really good team and we need to, not only win this game, but like in Indiana always wants to show style points, throw huge numbers on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Indiana. Indiana goes on the road and beats Oregon. I had said I think I was going to be stunned. Again, podcast of accountability. This is a good culture that we have around here. Indiana just continues to be amazing, in my opinion. They are so good.
Yeah, and they have the resume to have an argument to be the number one team in the country.
Completely.
It's crazy.
They have a much better win than Ohio State.
Yes, and Miami probably should be ranked number one. I think they've had some good wins as well, and they look very good. But I do think Indiana would beat Miami if they played.
It's just crazy to think we live in a world now that Indiana has a legit chance to win a national championship in football.
Legit chance. Like this isn't. Oh, I think they could win it.
Like last year, it was cute. Indiana's in the playoffs. We didn't really think they had a chance to win it. This year, I mean, because I also think the rest of the country is a little more wide open than it has been. Granted, Ohio State, Miami. I think Ohio State, Miami, and Indiana are probably, in my opinion, the top three teams in the country right now.
Yeah. Hold that thought. We'll talk about that in a second. But go ahead. Sorry. What? Were you not done there?
No, I was.
Okay. I was gonna say, do you think who are your national title contenders right now? Because I was throwing this out there to you guys on Saturday night.
I agreed with your list. If you want to list it off, if you remember them,
I'll go find it. It was obviously those top three, Tyler, that you just mentioned with OSU, Indiana, Miami. I think Notre Dame's in there, and I think Bama's in there. I think those are the five. I don't know if there's another one. I mean, A&M. I know that they have it, but
I was going to say A&M. They have a good win at Notre Dame, but they don't have a great win. Other than that, I mean, Florida's Florida, but we'll know a lot more about this A&M team these next 3 weeks. They go on the road 3 weeks in a row. I think they got Arkansas, LSU, and Missouri. So we'll know a lot more about that team in a few weeks.
What do you think about Texas Tech?
I am becoming a believer.
I kind of like them.
I haven't watched them play one snap. I'll hand up.
They're kind of legit.
Their defense is nasty.
Yeah. But again, they play in the Big 12, so we don't really know.
Yeah.
We don't really know. We won't know until they get in the playoff and they play Bama first round.
Yeah.
Do you guys think I'm crazy for including Notre Dame in my top 5 and saying maybe on Texas A&M, even though A&M beat them at home?
Yeah, I wouldn't pencil in Notre Dame as like a national, they're a contender, but I wouldn't say they're like one of the top 5 favorites. I would probably put them in like top 10. I
get that it's a very hypocritical statement to think that I would believe it more if you told me right now they won the national championship than A&M. I don't know why I think this with A&M. I have no reason to not believe that they're real. But Tyler, I think you're exactly right. Going on the road 3 straight weeks, if they get out of this one or these 3 weeks without a loss and have a legit chance to run the table in the SEC, I think, obviously they're going to be one of those teams up there. Elsewhere in the Big Ten, the Maryland game, there were some great games in the Big Ten. The Maryland game, again, I feel like I'm all over the map.
Maryland lead.
But they could have so easily won these last 2 games. And this isn't me trying to blow smoke or anything. I do think they're a lot better. I think they got hosed down the stretch of that game, specifically on the last drive. There was an intentional grounding that I thought was horrid. And then our boy, Dylan Raiola, throws 3 picks in that game. Did you guys Tyler, I don't think you did because you were at the A&M game. He throws a touchdown at the end, leads a game-winning drive. Got to give him credit there. But he threw 3 picks in that game. The pass was not even great. He threw it behind the guy. He one-handed it, and then he went and flexed on the whole Maryland crowd.
Nice, sick, beast.
Yeah, he's the real deal.
Do you think Ohio State's far and away the best team, or do you think Miami's right there with them and Indiana?
I wouldn't say
No.
far and away. Right now I'd say they're the best team. I wouldn't say far and away.
I would say they would be favored on like a neutral site by at least a touchdown to both those teams.
Indiana yes. I don't know if
Miami, I think Ohio State's defense is very, very good. And their offense is still like kind of picking it up, but their offense is always dangerous.
I could see them being like 4.5-point favorites against both those teams.
I don't know.
Indiana's starting to get the respect too that they do deserve.
I also don't think Oregon's going anywhere. Yes, they lost. I think they'll still be. They're probably going to run. I don't know who the rest of their schedule this year, but I think it's probably a safe bet to assume they're going to run the table the rest of the year.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I just something about them too. I can't put my finger on it. Similar to the Texas A&M thing. Dante Moore, I was not that impressed with in that game.
Yeah.
Something about Oregon. I don't know. It's been a weird year in the Big Ten in general, and this will transition us right to Penn State. James Franklin, Big Game James, is out at Penn State, which I'm really stunned that they pulled the trigger on it. I didn't think that they were going to this quickly. I mean, just 15 days ago or 16 at this point, the day before the Oregon game or the day of the Oregon game, they were ranked number 3 in the country. So let's do something on that real quick, because I think for all the things aside, I still think James Franklin is a good coach. He can't win the big one, clearly, but I am surprised that they pulled trigger that quickly on it. And I think it's one of those situations where it had run its course. Penn State was tired of it.
I think he's one of those coaches where he'll win 9-10 games, and that's great for some schools, but he's not able to win that big one, and that's what Penn State wanted. And the grass is not always greener, and I think Penn State might find that out unless they're able to poach some big name guy. But I don't know. I think I don't like the decision to fire him midseason, and I still think he's a great coach.
That's what I was going to say. You mentioned the grass isn't always greener. I guess the rumor is everyone said keep an eye on Matt Rule. Like, I know Matt Rule went there, but like I know we talk a lot of shit about James Franklin not winning the big one. I think he's a better coach than Matt Rule. Like if I'm putting them up against each other, I'm picking James Franklin.
Yeah.
It's like if you're going after Matt Rule, to me that's a downgrade. So I think to your point, Brian, unless you go post somebody big, I don't know what their move's going to be.
Yeah.
I think he's completely a downgrade. I don't know. At Nebraska, I mean, he's been afforded a lot of luxuries. He's been there for 3 years. So, over the span of 10, does he have a similar tenure to Franklin? Maybe. But it seems like a gamble and a lot of money that they're spending. Again, we don't know if Matt Rule is going to be the guy. But, yeah, that would be a complete head scratcher to me. I've sent out a couple tweets from our profile. Spit it out, kid. That I don't believe that Matt Rule would be him. So, anyways,
yeah. I'm curious.
Anything else in the college football landscape?
I'm curious how that Penn State team responds the rest of the year, and how Drew Aller plays, because
Drew Aller, no, he's out for the year, pal. I know you were at the A&M game, so yeah, he is out for the year. This is one of the biggest falls from, I don't want to say falls from grace, but I still don't think they're a bad team. Everything that we said about them preseason, like, I don't think any of that has come to be not true. I think Drew Aller, the ultimate enigma, 2 or 3 years ago, I think all three of us were completely out on him. After last year, I think we were in on him, or at least he showed development. And this year, it's just been a absolute. You want to talk about regression? There's been regression there.
Here's a question. It's October 12th. If I would have told you back on August 1st, Michigan State and Penn State would have the same record, would you think it would be at 3-3 or 6-0?
6-0.
Wow.
That's actually a fantastic question. I would probably say 6-0 though, because I thought Penn State was at least going to be 5-1 at this point. At worst.
Yeah, if you looked at that's the answer, because if you look at Penn State's schedule, there's zero shot. You looking at that schedule preseason, UCLA and Northwestern losses? Yeah, no shot.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else around the country, Big Ten, that we
USC, Michigan
before we talk? USC, I think, is for real.
USC, yeah, I agree. I think they're a very good team in my office. First round quarterback, in my opinion.
They dominated them kind of up front.
Yeah.
Do we think? I mean, I keep going back. Yeah, I agree with you. I think USC is for real. But do we think anything about the West Coast travel had a factor in that game at all?
Again,
because it keeps popping back up.
Washington beat
but Cignetti is the outlier, of course.
Of course he is. Well, I mean, and that's not even like a true that's kind of like, oh, I guess no, I don't know. Yeah, never mind.
Do we need to pull up a map for you, Mr. Lewerke?
No.
But it has to. I mean, it has to. I still think USC is a better team than Michigan, but Michigan did not look good.
I feel like Bryce Underwood has regressed the last 3 weeks too.
I haven't watched him enough to know, so I don't have an opinion as of now.
Yeah.
He misses some easy ones. I don't think the system or the receivers do him any favors, though, as well.
Yeah.
So I'll cut him a little bit of slack there.
Sure.
All right. Want to wrap it up here. We've been talking about Michigan State losing to UCLA 38-13 for about an hour now, and I think that's about all we can give. I don't think this topic is going anywhere in terms of leadership. It can get worse, get off the mat, coaching, whatever it might be, unless we're proven wrong, because I don't know what there is to be proven wrong at this point, besides the fact that they got to win a game. They have 2 really tough games coming up. You got Indiana on the road, and you got Michigan coming home. These are going to be 2 weeks that if there's any time to show a little bit of life and show some heart, show some fight, it's right now, because the window of games that are easily winnable, one being UCLA, has passed. You got to face some real teams now. So with that, we will talk to you this week. Go Green.